I'll say I'd like to have some questions. Don't worry.
I'll use 3 or 4 different voices,
I only have one, so I'll just ask one or two.
Are you serious?
so you don't have to say you again.
No.
No, I don't like that.
Oh, that's no good. Give me a second there.
This is not what I'm trying to do here. Deshaun, can you stop the music? All right.
Yeah.
So I've been looking forward to this. I thought it's important that we start documenting great artists and introducing them, especially to our audience here at Brush Culture. A lot of them, they see the names, but there's a lot they don't know about people. And as I was thinking about it this week, there's a lot I don't know. Like, I think you were already Eric Alexander by the time I met you. When I was 15, you came down to play with Mickey at
Right.
Fort Leaves.
Right.
And I met you and the whole gang with Mike Ladon and Weber. But how did you come to play the saxophone? How did you start in music from the beginning? How did this all start?
I certainly wasn't a prodigy or a phenom of any sort. I started playing saxophone primarily because a group of my friends played saxophone in the junior high school band. And I was playing clarinet but didn't really enjoy playing it, and I got demoted to bass clarinet and then demoted to, believe it or not, contrabass clarinet. And the band director, Jerry May, was on the verge of just permanently eliminating me from the concert band, which I didn't really want. It was embarrassing. I played piano pretty well at that age, and I didn't think I was a terrible musician, so I called a local woodwind instructor and asked if he would give me bass clarinet lessons. And
So how old are you at this point?
at this point, 12, maybe 13, well, let's see, 12. And he laughed. He said, I will not give you bass clarinet lessons, son, but I will give you saxophone lessons if you like, And I said, okay. Turned out that my friends in the saxophone section, each and every one of them, quite frankly, were studying with this man. His name was Dwayne Duxbury, and he was very old school, a little bit scary. He smoked cigars and blew it in your face, and he was eating sardine sandwiches, so the smell in there was an intimidation factor in and of itself.
That's right.
And he was very strict with regard to the mechanics of the saxophone. The saxophone's a very easy instrument to play. It's probably the easiest instrument of all. And one of the byproducts of that is, how can I put this? We get a lot of unpleasant approaches coming from saxophonists because it is so easy to play. They start moving their fingers a million miles a minute and don't say anything. And furthermore, the vocal nature of the instrument, because there's no classical pedagogical template for success other than the sound of classical saxophone, which is more or less a non-entity in the music world. I mean, in the classical Western art music world, there are very few concertos for saxophone. There's no place for a saxophone in an orchestra because it sticks out like a sore thumb. So when saxophone is tempered to the point where it's no longer sticking out like a sore thumb, it loses everything that it has to offer. It was really made to compete with brass instruments in marching bands. That's why it was invented. A woodwind that could compete volume-wise with brass instruments. And it really didn't even have a place in the music world until more or less, I mean, I don't want to pinpoint it with this one event, but when Coleman Hawkins played Body and Soul,
Yeah.
all of a sudden tenor saxophone eliminated the clarinet. I mean, if you think about it, with the exception of, well, of course, you know, Benny Goodman still had his career, and you had people like Buddy DeFranco and, you know, a number of others playing jazz clarinet, but jazz clarinet was no longer part of big bands, really, except as a double or ensemble playing. You just don't hear it.
Right.
Really,
So,
with
so
rare
this
exceptions.
feature, he turned you on.
Right,
to?
so I'm kind of skipping around. So the saxophone's a very easy instrument. And because it's so easy, if you really want to play it well, you need to know every single fingering that works the best in every situation that you might encounter. He was very specific about it. So side keys, alternate fingerings, all this, he would demand that I use the correct fingerings when I was playing through etudes, and he'd smack my fingers with a pencil if I wasn't using the right fingering. I mean, the idea was if you ever had to move two fingers to go one note, one step movement, if you move two fingers, that's a waste of mechanical energy. If you could move one finger, that was preferable. So for instance, rather than going, now when I went F sharp to G, F to F sharp, I had to move two fingers, so that's not allowed. That's one finger move with an alternate auxiliary key. And you'd be amazed, I'm amazed. I mean, I've had Jackie McLean and George Coleman watching me play, and they said, why are you using that key? And I said, well, it's because I was taught that way from Mr. Duxbury. So Jackie McLean thought that was weird. He never did it. George does it now. He does it from time to time. And there are many other examples. So
Does it sound different when you use?
every fingering has a slightly different sound, but that's not the overriding issue. It's technical precision. It's
Right.
technical precision. As opposed to, now see, if I flip at a certain tempo, I'm not going to be able to play it. It's just not as good. It's not going to be as clean.
So we owe this guy a great
Well, it's-
debt of gratitude.
I
for-
do. He didn't make it up. The saxophone's built with these components.
But he demanded that you
Demanded it. Absolutely
do
demanded it.
these things.
And so I developed a good foundation on the saxophone, and pretty soon I started competing with my friends. I'll get back to the thing about sound and the problem with the saxophone in a minute. I started, having a healthy competition without animosity with my friends. And that was good for me. I like that kind of stuff. We didn't hate on each other. We just tried to do better than one another. And when you had sectionals or auditions to improve your seat, we'd really fight it out. But best man would win, best kid would win, whatever. And saxophone was also a relief for me because I was working towards being a pretty good pianist at the time, but I developed this incredible case of the yips. Like if a catcher can't throw the ball to second base, they just like freaking out.
Playing mostly classical.
Exclusively. And I would make mistakes in the middle of a piece. I'd be going along beautifully, and I'd make a mistake, and I wouldn't know how to continue from where I was. I'd have to go back to the beginning because everything was muscle memory. Even though I had some kind of musical sensibility that was good, everyone would say, "Oh, Eric, you play so musically. You must have a great ear." I did not know what I was doing. Everything was muscle memory. And I melted down in big recitals 3 times in a row, and the third time I just walked off stage and I quit. Never would play again.
Oh, wow.
And saxophone was a relief because I got to play in the jazz band, and you kind of make mistakes and stuff. And you're playing jazz, whatever, it sounds okay.
Right.
It was a great relief.
So you said the yips. I know you run and all of that. Were you playing sports or doing
I wasn't really
anything in that time?
I wasn't a good athlete. I was behind. I was young for my grade, or edging towards young, and kind of a late bloomer. So you get overwhelmed. You got these men out there competing with little boys, smashing them. And so I wished that I would have been. I wished I were better back then. But no, I wish that I had been better back then. I wished
Right.
I could have been better. Whatever.
So music exclusively at this point?
No, not at all. It just came easy to me. I didn't even practice that much. I practiced maybe. This is what I used to do on the way to Mr. Duxbury. I'd be going like this on my thumbs, looking at the book, terrified. But I would get it together on the city bus. So we didn't have a lot of money. We were on food stamps and stuff, so I had a rented Bundy saxophone, and I would just be going like this. Really nerd, but I could get it together.
Oh wow.
And so when I got through high school, I started playing well compared to the other people that in the area. I was in Washington State, but as Les McCann says, compared to what?
Right.
You know, oh, you're the greatest thing. Oh, you're little Charlie Parker. No, compared to what? I didn't know anything.
So when did you start playing? Like you're studying. You're in like what? Junior high, in the high school.
I didn't know anything. I didn't know one tune. I didn't have any recordings. I grew up in this little podunk town, and we didn't have a jazz record store. We didn't have anything. The only thing I could buy when I went in the jazz section was Spyro Gyra or something like that, which is fine, but it didn't really appeal to me. It wasn't until this woman named Cheryl Edensword, who was kind of hip. I started studying with her after Mr. Duxbury became incapacitated. He had a stroke. And she would loan me recordings. She loaned me, the first recordings I ever heard were Stanley Turrentine, Let It Go, Dexter Gordon, Homecoming, and Giant Steps. She gave me those 3 records. And the minute I heard that stuff, I said, oh, that's actually what I was looking for when I kept buying Spyro Gyra. I mean, it really appealed to me.
So how old are you at the point when
17
you
at
get
this point. You know, I was just totally ignorant. And I went to college. I went to Indiana University, and I decided I would play music, but I would get a degree in political science. I would just play music to get a scholarship, and I knew it came easily, you know, to me, so I would do it. And then something happened at the end of my freshman year. I call it a benevolent cancer. I could not do anything except try to play jazz music.
Really?
I was starting to be exposed to things. You know how it is.
Yeah.
You know, when you hear the right thing, it's just like a...
But had you played a professional gig or anything at
Nothing.
that point?
No.
Had you sat in at a jazz club or seen a jazz show?
Yeah,
or-
they had a little club. I was in Olympia, Washington. There were 2 very fine saxophonists, one by the name of Bert Wilson, who, if you were to ask Lenny Pickett, you know, the Saturday Night Live high note guy, he was his guru. This guy had polio, and he was in a wheelchair. He only had use of his arms, and he developed this altissimo technique that Lenny got from him. So, but he was super avant-garde. I didn't dig him. And there was a kind of a swing saxophonist that did horn repair in town, and he played bebop lines. I liked him, but I didn't know what was going on at all. Zero. But and then I got to Indiana University, and some of the seniors, the way they played, which if I went back now and listened to it, I probably wouldn't think it was so good. But to me, it was spectacular, because they would play things like, like this, you know, and I had no idea what they were doing. They would just play something that sounded like language, you know, with a good rhythm and decent sound, and I would just be like, oh my God. Well, if they can do it, and they're human beings, it's humanly possible, so I can do it. I can do it. So I started practicing just until I couldn't take it anymore. Every minute that I wasn't studying, I would be practicing until they closed the music building, and I would sleep like 4 hours a day and then go do it again. Just trying to get my basics together. And I told my father that I was dropping out of school and I was going to go to New York and try to be a jazz musician.
Ooh, how'd that go?
He said, kid, if you pull a dumb stunt like that, you'll be selling your ass within a week. It's exact words. So I said, well, what if I find a place to study that'll be safe? And he said, okay, but you better hurry up. It's me, nobody's accepting anybody. But Rufus Reed got a hold of this tape, thank goodness, that I made with my friend from Olympia, Travis Shook, who played piano. And he accepted us at that late date for September. It was May, we sent the tape. And Dr. David Baker, who was head of Indiana University, the great jazz educator and cellist, well, originally trombonist, he taught Freddie Hubbard and hung out with JJ in Indianapolis. He really put a word in for me. He said, this guy, I know what he said, this guy doesn't know his head from his ass, but there's something inside of him he wants to play, just take him. And Rufus did. And he immediately put me in like the top ensembles when I got there. And I was overwhelmed. I had no idea what was going on. First combo I had was Harold Mabern. And he said, all right, we're going to learn Embraceable You. And I'm fumbling around for a real book. He said, no real book. He said, this is your real book.
Oh,
And
wow,
so
so
he-
you knew Mayburn from...
The first professor I encountered at William Patterson College was Harold Mayburn in my first combo class.
Oh, wow.
And I sucked. I didn't play anything on that. I don't even know what I was doing, but for some reason he thought there was something in there. And then he asked me a question, which I answered in such a way that he was enamored of me forever, and it was a complete accident. He said, who are your favorite tenor players? I named the only three I could think of, and in this order: John Coltrane, George Coleman, Sonny Rollins. He said, bingo! And that's the right order, too. And then he said, he always would say, what he played on Embraceable You was so profound. I knew I had an A+ student then. And I told him to do this, that. He never said why, how come. He never asked a question. He just came back and did it. The rest is history. But he babysat me. He picked me up and put me on his shoulders and carried me around for his entire life, really. I mean, the last 15 or 20 years, it was a best friend relationship. It started out as, surrogate father, guru, mentor, teacher of the highest level. Very intimidating to me, and I never said a word around him. But if anybody saw us together, and you did, in the last 20 years, people couldn't tolerate us because we were screaming at each other and laughing like best buddies. I mean, he would even ask me to cut his nose hairs on a train platform in Tokyo. That's how close we were. And I spent more time around him than I did my ex-wife. And I used to kind of snicker about it, thinking that must not feel so great to other people who care about me or whatever, but it just was the truth. I was around him all the time. So I just fell into good fortune, but as they say, fate behaves as she pleases, but your destiny is your expression of your desires with what has been put in front of you, because a lot of people had him put in front of them, and Rufus Reid and all these people. I had Joe Lovano as my teacher immediately when we went there. And if I had to give myself credit, which I don't really like to do, but I'll say I had some kind of wherewithal to know that this was the real deal.
How important are those relationships? I keep hearing, I mean, I know you a little bit. I'm learning a lot about you now. But like the relationship with Mike Ladon and the One for All crew, you guys are tight. Mm-hmm. You and Harold Mayburn, you met years ago. These teachers that see something in you, how important were those relationships in your development?
It's incalculably important. I don't like to say because I'm trying to find the words. The relationships I had with the One for All guys, with the exception of, Joe Farnsworth was at William Patterson College at the time with me, and we became friends. And Jim Rotundi, the trumpeter, would come from Brooklyn to jam with us and do little gigs. We used to go around in Patterson and knock on dive bars' doors and say, we'll play for free if you just give us a tip basket and free beer. But the gigs would last about 3 weeks because we would drink so much beer and there would only be 4 people in there that it wasn't worth it for them anymore. I mean, for real, it was just insane. But it wasn't to make a living, it was to play. We just wanted to play, find a place to play in front of somebody, anybody. And so that was good. Joe knew a lot more. His father's a music teacher, and he had, or has still, this record collection almost like Kenny Washington, maybe bigger. He would just get stuff and it was all a tax write-off. Every single record you could ever imagine. Oh, wow. Classical, jazz, pop, everything they have. So Joe knew a lot of history, and he made me aware of the fact that I didn't really know anything all the time. He delighted in that, but I needed to know those things. So he introduced me to a lot of music. Harold just introduced me to music by sitting at the piano and teaching me tunes. The only thing Harold Mayburn cared about was tunes. He would say, cats and tunes. Cats and tunes, that's all that matters. Do you know this one, Big Red? And he'd sit down and just start playing. And after about an hour, I'd figure it out. Every tune he taught me, I still remember. The very first tunes he taught me, I remember. Never forgot them. So when I'm teaching now, I try to channel that type of teaching technique, even though that's not how I started out when I was young. It was the most profoundly important to me to get the young people to get their face off of their phone or out
Yeah.
of the book, and it takes.
We'll get to that. I'm having fun actually talking to you
Okay.
about music. I don't want to talk about these kids yet.
All right.
We'll talk about it. How do we get from the point where you're in school now? You meet Harold Mayburn, and now you get to your first gig or your first traveling road experience, or
Yeah. Well, the summer before I ended up at William Patterson, I got a job on a Carnival cruise ship.
oh wow,
And that was my first real gig. I liked it. It was fun. Played in the big band that played for all the entertainment that came out and did our jazz shows. There were a few players in that band that were good compared to what, again, here we go, but compared to me. So I paid attention and would ask questions. There was a saxophonist named Tom Glusak. He still lives in the New York area. He taught me how to play an auto-link mouthpiece. I did not know how to play it. It takes this very special technique, so I learned that from him. And I also played on Carnival cruise ships the following summer. But no professional experience to speak of. The first thing that happened to me was absolutely terrifying. Harold was promoting me, talking about me, encouraging me, and he said, "You better come by Trumpets this weekend." And George Coleman's playing there with Carl Allen and Jamil Nasser and me, and you better
Trumpets,
sit in.
the club in New Jersey.
Trumpets. Well, it's gone now. I
Right?
believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a different incarnation of the same room. Maybe the ownership changed. Don't remember.
So
The bartenders
what
was
year
still
are we
there at the end.
talking
This
about?
was 89.
Okay.
I was a junior. I said, I don't want to do that. And he said, but let me warn you, you're going to do it, and you better be ready. You better be ready to play Cherokee in weird keys. And I said, okay. So I went in. I guess he was playing Friday, Saturday, or whatever. The first night I went in, I sat in the front row watching him, just pooping my pants and sweating. And I had my saxophone case there, and he didn't even look at George, didn't even look at me. And he could see back then. He knew it was me. Harold had told him. Nothing happened. So Harold saw me. I guess that was a Thursday night. Harold saw me in school Friday, and he said, "You big dummy! Do you think he's going to ask you to play? Who are you? You better get your horn out of the case." I said, can't do it. So I'll never forget it. He's up there playing. He's still not looking at me. I get my horn out of the case. He's up there going. He's playing Dedicated to You. I didn't know what it was at the time, except from the Coltrane Hartman record. I mean, I didn't know the tune. And he gets to you because you're loved on the bridge, and he just pointed at me. I was like, ah. So I stood up, and I think I hit the 5th scale degree. I think I hit my A. It was the concert G. And then, I sort of stumbled up the steps, got through it by ear. And then he goes,
Oh, here we go.
he's playing Cherokee, politically incorrect intro at light speed. Da, 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 da. He's playing, and all of a sudden he looks at me on the bridge, and so I go, oops, because he was in G, he wasn't in B flat. So the first note I played was a beautiful note. Yeah, right. He was in B, he was in G. So the first chord's, and I played. I was like, ah! So then he gets back to the A section. So I'm kind of looking for notes. Then I find out that the root is a concert G, my A, and then he gives me the first solo. Of course, I think it was Stop Time or something like that. But I got through it. Got through
There's
it.
like a little, in a lot of your stories and a lot of the way you learn, there's like a sports kind of like sink or swim
Yeah.
competitive kind of thing. Like you're competing to get better, to
Yeah.
get the slots in high school.
I guess
Like the way Harold Mayburn told you, you better get ready. I know a lot of people that would have just said, they just wouldn't have gone.
Yeah, well, I like that kind of stuff. I like it when people tell me I can't do something or watch out, you're going to wipe out. That really gets me going.
Right.
And I really don't care so much about crashing. I just don't want help. That's a bad thing. Sometimes you got to ask for help. Even when I was a little kid, I'd go to the roller rink. I didn't know how to skate, and the guy in the referee thing that monitors all the kids, you know, I'd fall, and he'd try to pick me up, and I'd throw a temper tantrum and cry, and my mom would have to drag me off the floor because I just refused to have help, and I refused to say that I couldn't do something. I would say that they can all do it, so I can do it. It's going to take me time. I didn't care because then I'd have their butts once I figured it out better than them. It's like with saxophone. See this lump on my thumb?
Yeah.
That I don't play correctly. I don't care. That's what I do. At one point, I just started grabbing the horn like that. My thumb wears through. Doesn't matter. Some things I like to figure out on my own, and some I will listen to people that are total experts too. But they have to be total experts, like Mr. Duxbury. There's no screwing around with it. You know.
Interesting.
I can usually tell when people know what they're talking about. I don't like teachers who try to mystify everything. I like very direct. I like it when somebody says, you are doing that wrong. You are doing that incorrectly. And if you were successful in your endeavor doing it incorrectly, I might give you a pass, but you're doing it wrong and you sound bad. So you have to fix it. And I will respond to that kind of stuff. Yeah, so maybe so. So that was the first professional whatever wipeout experience I had. But Dorthon Kirk was there from BGO, and she started talking to the owners and said, you should have him in on Wednesday nights. And they started having me play on a weeknight. It was so fun. I would play with Farnsworth, and I don't remember, different pianists, usually Dan Kostelnik, I think.
I know Dan.
Or maybe Travis would play.
Wow, it's
I
interesting.
don't recall who played bass. Maybe Doug Weiss, maybe, don't know. Or Mike Sisman.
It's funny, all these names of people who were around. I know Travis Shook from when he worked with Betty Carter.
Right.
Dan Kostelnik, I grew up playing with him. He was the roommate of Bill Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
You're running in these circles and like kind of brushing shoulders with all these guys.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. But so then I had that gig, and that was fun. You know, I didn't want to play with music. I made sure I'd have, 2 sets of repertoire that I could play and play different tunes next week. We were sort of different breed, even back then. I mean, you're a little younger than me, or maybe a lot younger. But even all the way back then, 1987 through 1990, most people in college, maybe less so at William Patterson, but at most of the big jazz schools, were not doing what we were doing. We were sort of in an anomaly group of people that really wanted to play straight ahead, and we wanted to play stuff that we thought was hipper than what all these other people were playing. Yeah. So everybody was playing, not taking anything away from Mike Brecker. I mean, he's great. It's not his fault that he's so great that everyone tries to play like him, but they were all trying to play that kind of stuff, more fusion-y stuff, and we just went with religious fervor the opposite way. We wouldn't listen to that. All we'd listen to was Hank Mobley, Kenny Dorham, and
Right.
I mean, all the stuff we listened to.
The Cats.
The Cats. And I'm glad we did. It's like Mark Twain says, well, whatever the mob's doing, you should probably do something else, like run. Go the other way.
Right.
Fast.
So, all right, you said it. I do want to get to that, and then we want to take some questions before we wrap up.
I wanted to say one thing, though, Rodney, because
Please.
I digressed and then I dropped it. I was insulting this instrument. I want to finish insulting it. This instrument is a little bastard creature that is easy to play, and it's created a lot of monsters out there. Pianists or it's usually pianists or guitarists. So you're so lucky you get a vocal quality in what you're playing. the fact that this instrument has the potential for a vocal quality should not give people this free will, evil impulse to play the saxophone like this. I mean, it's so putrid. It really is. It's biblical. It's
great
free
word.
will run amok, because I prefer the piano. The notes are sonorous. I mean, they line up. If the piano's tuned correctly, okay, you can have the touch, but the purity of the tone is already there. You don't need to listen to a lunatic recite Shakespeare. It's not going to sound good. It's already good the way it is. You know, shall I compare you to a summer's day? No, you'd run fast, and that's what most saxophone players play like. They don't acknowledge that they have a great opportunity, but also an evil poison that they can spew out of this, which is too many notes and ugly sounds, really ugly. In fact, almost every saxophone sound I hear is ugly to me.
Really?
I don't like them, and I don't like the saxophone. It's my least favorite instrument, but I play it.
So you don't want to be a part of the saxophone choir thing we're booking?
I'll do it, but I have to be in charge of, you know, who plays what part and everything. So I try to get my saxophone students, I mean, in addition to playing harmony and melody and good rhythm and learning tunes and all that, to treat the instrument with great caution. I try to get them to tongue less. All these saxophoners are going, they think that's swinging. That is not swinging. Get rid of your tongue, you know, pretend you're a eunuch or something. Hit the notes in the center of the pitch. No vibrato until you're allowed, young person, because if the note doesn't sound good on its own, vibrato's not going to improve it. It makes it more disgusting.
You know, I read that in a Miles book.
Yep.
He said,
Clark Terry told him
you'll shake enough when
you'll be
you get
shaking
old.
when you're an old man. So I try to get people. Also, play the horn very quietly, because it's loud enough. You can hear air crossing the metal. So I say, start with that and add a little bit of sound. And Bruce in the pudding, if you're Coltrane playing ballads. Johnny Griffin told me, when I asked him how to get a good sound, he said, subtone, man, all over the horn, subtone.
Huh.
And that's fading away. Everyone's playing like this. You know, which makes me say, why are you so mad? What did you get angry about?
Who did this to you?
I mean, sometimes that's warranted, you know. Another thing people don't realize is when they hear Coltrane squeaking and squawking, for lack of a better term, I don't mean that as an insult, he is trying to play things that are so incredibly difficult that that's a natural byproduct of his. It's like climbing Mount Everest. It's going to be on a razor's edge. So if he's going, I mean, I can't even do it, but see, it's breaking, or stuff like that. The notes are breaking because the intervals are so big. It's not that he's on purpose going, which is an affectation, which is what a lot of saxophonists do. Also, they have these affectations. They try to be angry or mushy or maudlin, and it's like, come on, you can't be all those things in the last 5 minutes. So, anyway, enough about saxophone.
Right. All right, so we're running out of time, so we're going to
Oh.
take some questions. Leslie, you?
Yes, young lady.
So, if you said you really don't like to play the saxophone. That really struck me.
Oh, I didn't say
It's
that.
not your. It's
Let me
not your
rephrase.
favorite.
I rescind the comment. I love playing the saxophone. I don't like the instrument as I wish I played guitar or piano. Because the saxophone freaks me out. It's so nasty. So I spend most of my time trying to beautify it. I do like playing it though. So I rescind the comment the way I made it. But it's scary. It's a scary instrument.
Well, you know, I've only heard you play a couple of times, but here, and I think you're great. I really love your sound. And,
Well, thank you.
you know, I was wondering which of the saxophones do you like to play the most, and who? I know you said your top three.
Oh, no, that was a guess that worked.
Oh, I see. But you were in terms of bebop and swing.
The list-
Who inspired you the most?
Well, the list is it's too long, because if you were to ask me this, if you could only listen to one saxophone player, who would it be? I'd say Charlie Parker. That's an easy one. Or which tenor player, if you could only listen to one, I don't even think I can answer. Which one have I learned more ideas from, even though I don't copy his approach? I would say Coltrane, but that's tough. I mean, Bird is so far, Charlie Parker is so far space alien level above everybody. I mean, if Charlie Parker showed up in New York this week, he would figure out what everyone's doing and do it better and do his own thing
Sure
within
would.
a couple days. I mean, and I'm very confident of that. If I had to say that at the pearly gates and from St. Peter, I'd take my chances. I think that's true. There are so many, but I love, of course, Coltrane and of course Sonny Rollins, but everyone does. I really love George Coleman and Eddie Harris, like some of the people that aren't listened to that much. Eddie Harris, Junior Cook. Of course, I love. There's so many.
Can you give us a couple of examples of records? Because I find just saying the names, some of these people have such long careers.
Yeah.
They change at the end or in the middle or whatever.
Okay. Well,
Particularly of the people that
Of
you
the
said
lesser
are
known?
Yes, exactly.
It's so hard because there's so many. Well, now everyone knows this record, or at least they pay lip service to it. But for Hank Mobley, I mean, Soul Station, he never played one note out of place, which is not a sign that he's worked things out. It's just that he's so musical. He said he didn't care about making a mistake. He cared about playing anything corny, but he never made a mistake, and he never played anything corny. So Soul Station for Hank Mobley, it's just incredible. Sonny Stitt, another person who plays with great perfection, I would say New York Jazz. He plays tenor and alto on there, sometimes on the same track, and it's just overwhelming. Also, the record he did with Bud Powell and Max Roach, where he was teasing Bud Powell, came out under different titles. I had it on a print called Bud's Blues, but I can't remember the bassist.
He was teasing Bud Powell? How so?
Oh, you're the great Bud Powell, huh? The genius, modern genius of music. Let's see what you got. So the first thing he plays is and he's making fun of Bud the whole time, and Stitt just comes in ripping. I mean, that's not what he played, something like that. And Bud's, they're fighting it out. That's great. Let's see. Well, Eddie Harris, people are sleeping on him big time. I would say there's a record called The Tender Storm. He does a stop time, like 3 stop time choruses on If Ever I Would Leave You at very fast tempo. Also, there's a record he did called The In Sound, where he plays The Shadow of Your Smile with that conga beat groove. And he plays it in the upper edge there. And Bill Higgins doing the conga beat. Junior Cook, so many good records, but Pressure Cooker, I like that. Let's see. Well, in my opinion, and I'll argue with anybody about this, I think I'll win. The best straight-ahead jazz record made since 1974 is the original Eastern Rebellion with Cedar, George Coleman, Sam Jones, Billy Higgins. That's a masterpiece. That's an absolute.
What's the name of it?
It's just called Eastern Rebellion.
I thought you were going to say Glass Bead Game.
Well, that's a great one too. So yeah, but I can keep going.
When you started, I said, yeah, Glass Bead Game.
Okay, well that's Clifford Jordan. Yeah, and he plays. Yeah, the John Coltrane tune. Yeah. That's kind of how he plays. Dexter Gordon. I mean, these guys. Dexter's not lesser known. He gets a lot of credit. Everyone likes Go. I really like Dexter Calling, where he plays the He plays at the end of a love affair in Long Meter, and he plays this intro. He goes, oh wait, that's Smile. That's the intro to Smile. Excuse me. End of a love affair. He goes. You know, with Philly, and then he goes. That's a great one. Just
How often do you get to listen to records?
records or just jazz
or
music?
just music, and in what form do you listen? I know I'm listening to you, and the sound you're getting, it seems like it's past just like a superficial listening. Like it's like you really spend a lot of time with it, but like these kids now, they're with the MP3s or YouTube or
That's a
what
good
have
point.
you.
It needs to be addressed.
But now in this day and age, how do you listen, and how often do you get to do that?
Strangely enough, I rarely listen to jazz music. I listen to so much pop music and classical music, trying to find tunes to do in a jazz context. The stuff that I listen to relentlessly, I mean, 3 notes of any record that I'm familiar with, I will tell you what the record is and all the sidemen. I just have a photographic memory. It's not really the archival encyclopedic collection that's important. It's how well do you know the things that you adore, and how deep have you gone into it? Because it's sort of an Eastern mysticism philosophy. You know, you dip your toe into the river, but you have a different experience every time. You could be just fine listening to all Charlie Parker recordings, Sarah Vaughan, Billie Holiday, Ella Fitzgerald, Frank Sinatra, a couple sing Carmen McRae, whatever, pick your singers, listen to the American Popular Songbook. That's enough. Quite frankly, that's enough to play modern jazz. Chick Corea said it. You don't need anything more than that. American Popular Songbook and Charlie Parker. That's it. But if you want to listen to more, it's how you listen. It's how deep you go into it. And it's like you said, unfortunately, young people have, it's a blessing and a curse. They have the supercomputer at their hands. They're jumping around from not even finishing the track. They don't know who the sidemen are.
Right.
You know, when we would hear a cut that we loved, we'd grab the record or the CD and check out who the sidemen were, and that would inform us of what to buy next.
Exactly. It was like a
I
treasure
love-
hunt or something.
Right. I love the trumpet player. Who's that? Oh, it's Lee Morgan. I'll go buy a Lee Morgan record. These guys don't even know what the original recording was, where it was done, who the sidemen are. So, not everybody, but it's a problem. It's too much information. It's biting off more than anybody could chew. Much better to, instead of trying to understand the mysteries of the universe, look under a microscope at one album, I think.
Yeah. Okay, so let's take a couple of questions and then we'll get out of here.
I-
You young lady, and
I have 2 questions. One is a short one, but I'll ask the long one first. You have a lot of reviews and are known for your tone quality on the saxophone, and that's interesting based on everything you've said before you making that comment. Do you believe that knowing the lyrics to the songs that you play on saxophone lend to having accomplished the phrasing and understanding and tone quality of the music that you play? Because I know that you know a lot of lyrics to the songs that you play, and I don't know how common that is among instrumentalists.
I couldn't answer for other instrumentalists. It's a great help to me. I know Ben Webster was seen crying one time, supposedly, because he forgot the lyrics while he was playing, and he got sad.
oh wow,
Other saxophonists said it doesn't matter at all. Johnny Griffin said, I don't give a shit about lyrics, you know. At least people should know what the tune is about. Then you can break the rules if you want. But people that think the end of a beautiful friendship is a sad tune, which I heard an esteemed instructor lecturing on one day. He said,
The lyrics
"Well,
is-
It's
Just
at
the beginning of love.
And he's sitting there talking to the kids. Why are you playing that so upbeat? This is the saddest song in the world. The end of a beautiful friendship. And I'm just over there like that. So knowing the song's original intent, but then you can break the rules. If you don't know the lyrics, at least some kind of way, you should know the syllables. Because you can't embellish a melody well if you don't know the syllables of it. So let's say I'm playing. But I'm not saying I've been around the world in a plane. I'm saying I put my left foot in the sewer drain. I'm trying to, if I had the same syllables, I could get away with it. For me, it's very important. On ballads, really, in particular, it informs the phrasing so very much, especially when you're moving the melody out of the register, like the what do you call it? The contiguous, how do you pronounce it? Contiguous register format for the line. Oftentimes horn players will move into a tessitura that's more comfortable, but if you don't know the lyrics, you have a problem. So if you're playing embellishing, but that sounds like "Who knows where the road will lead us" to Leon Russell. But I can get away with it because I know the lyrics, especially when you're changing registers. Let's put it this way: it can't hurt anything that informs the musician to any degree on any of these levels: emotional, harmonic, intellectual, is good. Turning off any component of our being is bad. So we should be thinking, we should be loving, we should be hearing, we should be hating. I mean, all these things come out in the music. And to plant yourself in that space of really being present, knowing the lyrics is very important.
You had a second part?
Yeah, my other question, Steve, here. What type of saxophone do you play? Do you prefer?
Oh, well, this is the Eric Alexander model tenor saxophone made by Ishimori Woodwinds in Tokyo, Japan. The horn is called Woodstone, which is an oxymoron. That's okay. It's called Woodstone, and this is a particular model. They make other tenors, which are good. This model, for anybody listening who's excited, if you buy the non-Eric Alexander model, it's not the same, and it's worse. Well, it is. But it is. There's just no doubt about it. Actually, all these horns up here are Ishimori horns on the stage right now.
Very cool.
I am not a musical prostitute in the sense that I would take a small remuneration to play a horn that I don't like as much as my Selmers that I have at home. I like this horn better.
Wow.
And they couldn't pay, if they paid me $20,000 a year, which they don't, but if they did, Ishimori, are you listening? If they did, and I didn't like it, I would not play it.
Oh, wow.
That's not worth it.
So this is a new horn.
I just got this when I was in Japan. Yeah, it looks kind of old. You should see the other one.
I just assumed it was like one of those old things.
Yeah. No, this is a matte finish, and it's going to be completely looking lacquerless in a matter of months. I have another one that is not here today, and it looks like it sunk with the Titanic. But they're new. This horn was just built probably within the last year.
Okay, one last question.
I know you said you wanted to learn the bass clarinet. I mean,
Don't.
The bass saxophone.
No. I don't want to learn bass clarinet.
You did at one time.
No, I just didn't want to get kicked out of band.
I see.
But maybe I'll experiment with it at some point. No, I really have no desire to play bass clarinet.
Because I remember, listening to some music and Eric Dolphy played that instrument.
Well,
and it was very interesting.
Yeah, if you had asked me 4 years ago, did I have any interest in playing soprano and alto, I would have said no. But if you ask me today, I'll say I play those things more than I play the tenor. I do when I'm at home.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody. It's a
Take a
pleasure
break.
to interact.
Awesome. I learned a lot. I'm a bad dude. You can
You're a
play
bad
some,
dude, man.
You can play some tenor and some alto.
And some soprano, too.
Some soprano. Hello, folks. How do I
If
stop
I can
this
get this
without?
read on right.